For this is on my blog, and so I will be posting the link later. So Katie, if you for your response, if you wish, you'll be able to access every word I'm about to say online and look at it more carefully for your response if you wish. And one thing, I was supposed to read this yesterday and time it. I wrote it. It's 2,490 words, so it's just under 2,500 words, and I think it's going to be within the time that we set parameters for. But I never timed it. I just totally forgot. I just now realized, oh crap. So it might be a little under, might be a little over. We'll find out. But I'm basically just going to be reading from my blog what I wrote this week. So the title is Finding Your Center in a Pandemic. I find it ironic to be giving a talk on finding your center on a week when I could use my own advice as much as anyone. 2020 has been a difficult year for finding and keeping one's center. And this week for me has been especially hard. President Trump returned to the White House, touting his miraculous recovery and telling Americans not to worry about COVID-19. Another hurricane threatens the Gulf Coast this week. And minutes ago, it was announced that Eddie Van Halen has died. It's only Tuesday. So much of what follows is self-talk. It's definitely a very personal approach to finding my own center, and what works for me may not work for others. The following is advice, philosophy, methods of finding your center that I have preached for over a decade. Some are methods that I stumbled across. Some are things I realized were working for me only after having done them unconsciously for years. In 2010, I had a bow tree moment of realization, took a personal inventory, and began purposefully to apply these things to my life, as well as to teach others about them. Some of these suggestions may work well in a pandemic, almost as if they were tailor-made for such a moment. But some needed to be tweaked, hence the title of my talk. Most of what follows is applicable to life, pandemic or no pandemic. So when and if it's finally over, the following methods will still work just fine. What does finding your center mean? For a group as diverse and enlightened as this one, it's probably overkill to define what finding your center means. Many of you probably have a pretty good concept of what that entails, but it won't hurt to hear it again, if only from a different perspective. For me, finding your center is akin to what Buddhists call nirvana. It is not a place you can go or visit. It's not somewhere you go when you die. It's a state of mind you carry with you. It's a basic Buddhist concept, though you don't have to be a Buddhist to experience it. I am not a Buddhist, yet I use much of their terminology to help describe what I feel I have attained. Finding your center is the state of existence where you have silenced the noise and the voices around you, and you act out of your own desires. It may not necessarily mean you have successfully shut out all the noise of life around you. You still have to live and participate in a world as a social animal. It's more that you have turned up the voice that you wish and need to hear, which is your own. Finding your center is not being under compulsion from any external voices or demands, and following your own desires that come from within. This is not the same as shirking your responsibilities and thumbing your nose at the world and going to live in a cave. It is living in the world with a job, other people, and physical and economic demands that you meet while experiencing nirvana. It's not only finding your center, but holding it. Finding and holding your center is recognizing the beauty in the ugly, consciously seeking out the balance, the yin and the yang of life. Life will still be difficult and challenging. The noise of the world will still batter at your door. Finding your center means being able to look at the hard times, the ugly times, and salvage something beautiful from them. Even the darkest moments have a brighter side waiting over the hill. Finding your center is holding out through the dark times, then looking back and seeing what that experience was beautiful. What did you learn? How did you grow? Finding your center is having no regrets after a trying experience because, however painful, it made you who you are at the moment. The experience had value, even if it meant great loss. Achieving nirvana, finding your center, does not mean life ceases to suck at times. Some of the darkest moments of my life have occurred since 2010. It doesn't mean those times were not difficult. It doesn't mean you won't find yourself on the edge of the abyss. It doesn't even mean you won't go over. Many people have found their center only to lose sight of it and check out when they thought they could take it no longer. Finding your center is not a victory that is final. It's something that must be consciously practiced daily. You have to check yourself on a regular basis to see that you are holding your center. We all lose our grip from time to time. 2020 has been one of the most challenging years for me to hold my center. Maybe that's why I chose this topic. I needed to refocus, and I hope it helps some of you as well. Finding your center requires a shift, a looking away from the distractions toward items or ideas of a more spiritual value. Two stories, albeit perhaps mythical, serve as examples of how to do this. These are the temptations of Jesus and the temptations of Buddha. Although ostensibly occurring 500 years after Buddha, the story of Jesus' temptation in the desert is the more familiar story with Westerners. According to the story, Satan confronts Jesus with three challenges or temptations. The first was to turn stones into bread. This is the distraction or temptation of our physical needs, in particular hunger. Jesus turns his focus to the Word of God as the more rewarding option. Meditation on spiritual matters takes precedence over physical needs. The second temptation is one of ego or self-importance. Jesus counters with the warning not to tempt God. For non-theists, we could say it's a warning not to tempt chance by placing ourselves in knowingly dangerous situations. The final temptation is one of material desires or greed. One central aspect of finding and keeping your center is satisfaction with what we have. The lure of material things and the means to acquire them is detrimental to our sense of self-worth. If we are always in need of more, there is no time of rest or peace. The Buddha also underwent three similar temptations under the Bo tree. Overcoming them is what led to his enlightenment. Following through with them is what Buddhists call right living. It's a little more complicated and detailed than that, but this is not a lesson on Buddhism. The first temptation was that of lust in the form of the daughters of Mara. Buddha rejected their charms. Nothing wrong with a healthy sex life. It can be an important part of living a full human life. But to be overly compelled by sexual desire definitely keeps off center. The second temptation was that of fear in the form of a demon army. Again, nothing wrong with a healthy dose of fear. It could be that which keeps us out of danger and keeps us alive. But living in constant fear of loss, of violence, of strangers, of our own irrational fears or fantasies, this will also keep us off center and unfocused. When we live in fear, our focus is always on what might be and not what is. Living in fear is living in a possible future instead of embracing the actual now. The third temptation of Buddha is that of social duties and obligations. This in some ways is the most difficult to overcome. We are ingrained by our culture, starting from childhood, to do what you're told by authority. Finding your center doesn't mean shirking your duties or resorting to anarchy. It means living within the system you inherit, without succumbing to the idea that the system is what matters. You can meet the needs of any system, family, government, religion, social organizations, without sacrificing your own humanity. We can learn to use the systems to our mutual benefit, fulfilling the dictates of the system while also drawing from it for ourselves. So how do we do? I need to take a sip. Voice is getting dry. So how do we do this practically in our daily lives? The answers will be different for each individual, but these are the practices I've found most helpful in my own life. First, fill your mind with good things. If we're going to live a centered life, free from the noise and the distractions of the world, you're going to need other things to dwell on. For me, the top three are books, movies, and music, but not just any books, movies, and music. I tell my students and my friends and family, many of you have heard this, I know Pella's certainly heard it, that I can't remember the last time I was bored. That's because I've consciously filled my head with enough good stuff that I'm never at a loss for something to meditate on or daydream about. For books, don't just read any old paperback garbage or on a bestsellers list. Research classic literature and read authors who have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. The most recent one was just announced this week. Get the recent Pulitzer Prize winning novels. Read biographies of people you admire. Google award-winning historians and seek out their works on presidents, civil rights leaders, artists, and other notable persons in history. Choose works that are challenging and inspiring. My personal criteria for the worth of a book is one that, when you are finished reading it, you are a different person than you were the one who began reading it. Your experience has been expanded, you've grown, your view of the world is grander. Your core beliefs may have been challenged and may even possibly have been changed. And your knowledge base has been broadened. For movies, I recommend watching Best Picture and Best Screenplay Oscar winners. Check out the American Film Institute's Top 100 list. And don't neglect foreign language films and silent films. Watching winners of Best Foreign Language Oscars are always a good use of time. If you're still at a loss for what to watch, hit me up. I can recommend a few. And my criteria for movies is similar to that of books. Watch films that challenge and change you. Not just entertain you. For music, there's nothing wrong with jamming out to classic rock, rap, country, or pop. But for filling your head with good stuff, stick with classical music and jazz. YouTube has 6 and 8 hour long videos of music for meditation, music for learning, music to study by. They have different terms. Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, Rachmaninoff. The list is almost exhausted. For jazz, you'll never go wrong with the early Miles Davis and any of John Coltrane. One added suggestion for using music to find your hold your center: invest in a good set of headphones. I personally recommend the Bose noise canceling headphones. But do your research, find a pair that suits you. Doing so will also, it helps you create a space. This is more particular to the pandemic. Noise canceling headphones help you create a space that is all your own, where you can be, quote, alone, even in a house that might be crowded with other people. And sometimes a good pair of noise canceling headphones can be worn just for silence. So another practical way to find and keep your center is to create something. You may not consider yourself an artist, but the act of creation brings a focus to our lives that few other activities do. Creation takes us out of ourselves and places our focus on something other. I can think of no better activity to silence the noise around us than to create something. And it doesn't have to be art. It can be any project. Building a bookcase, redecorating a room, planting and tending a garden, or a flower bed, landscaping. Whatever you choose to do, the time spent working on it is time not focusing on the distractions of the world. Another way to find and hold your center is by participating in groups like this one. Meeting with like-minded people, sharing ideas, getting and giving support is both healthy and fun. Affirmation is a great boost to living a centered life. Spend more time with positive people and less time just scrolling on social media, of course. And heaven forbid, avoid arguing online with closed-minded people. And by all means, stay out of the comments section on anything political or religious. While most of this can and does apply to individuals, finding and keeping your center with a partner or a spouse is a great relationship builder. Mutually growing together strengthens bonds and can make for a longer lasting, happier relationship. Don't just plan your time together. Plan your time apart. Be conscious of each other's needs for alone time as well as couple time. Date nights are great and necessary. However, schedule time for yourselves as individuals as well as a couple. For people with small children, all of this comes with an added level of difficulty to accomplish, especially if one is a single parent. The reality up to a certain age is that the child won't understand and his or her needs take precedence. But by the age of about 5 years old, they are ready to be trained in finding their own center. Great books, great movies, great music, learning to express themselves creatively, learning the value of alone time. These are all great things for children as young as 5, I'd say, to learn and appreciate as early in life as possible. This doesn't mean that by caring for a young child, you must temporarily forego living a centered life. Consciously focusing on the needs of a child and doing your best to care for and provide for them, this too can help you find and keep your center. Raising a child is, after all, focusing on something external, something outside of yourself that requires time and attention and nurturing. Finding your center is especially needful in moments like this. It is a way to overcome the dread and fear of COVID-19. Reading the news is one of the most detrimental activities we can do in times like these. It's part of the depression I've been battling here. I added that. That's not written here. We have to remain informed. The daily inundation of reports of increasing cases and deaths, the dismantling of democracy in the United States by our current president, the brazen and unceasing abuse by police officers of African Americans, and any other number of distressing stories is more than just about anyone can handle. Finding your center and living from that place inside you can help you stay even keel while remaining informed of events in the world. Now is not the time to stick our heads in the sand. We can remain active and sane at the same time if we live from our center. Finally, finding your center and living from that place is not a matter of simply psyching yourself out. It's not living in denial. It's embracing all of life for what it is, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly, the darkness and the light. By acknowledging both the positive and the negative aspects of life, we live it more fully. By recognizing both, we are able to find balance in our lives. We learn and grow and thrive when we welcome all that life brings us. This is finding and holding and living from your center. How long was that?